Hello Triathlon， 你好铁三，这是一档由铁人打造的耐力运动生活方式播客，解密关于铁三的一切，展现铁三运动的完整场景和魅力所在。欢迎您的收听。大家好，我是 Shining， 欢迎来到我们的节目。Yeah, such an honor. Firstly, I want to congratulations on your win in Anhui.
Oh, thank you so much.
How do you feel about it?
It was my first win, so I was pretty excited. It's something I'd been wondering whether it would actually be possible to ever win a race. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah.
I'm still pretty excited.
Yeah. And it's also my first time to be a referee on that kind of race. It's the first time that China has full distance after 10 years time. Yeah.
So I heard the first full distance on mainland China ever, as far as I heard.
Yeah. So it's very big. It's huge. So I witnessed you finish the back leg at the T2, and I am on the motorcycle all the way, just by your side for a while.
Yes.
So it's such a unique experience also for me, and I think mostly for all the Chinese people who first time to witness such a big race in China.
I think, it would be quite bizarre if you're not used to seeing this kind of race with all the equipment and so many people and the way it's structured. So I can understand why they were fascinated. The number of people in the crowds was amazing. I was so shocked.
We also so shocked as triathlon fans, and we can never imagine such a heat around the people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think as Challenge Family are renowned for putting on such a good show and making it entertaining, and every single competitor is obviously very important for Challenge Family, as you can see by the finish line where everybody gets confetti and finishing tape and music and enthusiasm.
It lasted to the midnight, and all the people don't want to go home.
I was there till midnight as well. It was great at the end.
Yes. I want to give you a little introduction of our program, and we want to promote this great sports in China, and I want to let the ordinary people to pay attention to it, and to get knowledge of how wonderful this sport is, and how you start your experience as a triathlete.
Well, to be honest, I was just the same as anybody else, and I had no particular sporting talents. But when I went to university and then started working, I started to get a little bit fat, and I needed to exercise, but I needed flexibility. Without team sports, I needed it to be able to do exercise at my own schedule.
Yes.
So I began to run, and then I bought a bike, and that's how I really got started. A friend told me about a very small race, just an entry-level triathlon, which I think was 300 meters swim, a 10-kilometer bike ride, 3-kilometer run. And I thought, you know what, I can swim, I can run, and I can ride.
Yes.
So I just turned up, and I had no idea what I was doing.
Okay.
And in the swim, I almost drowned. I had a panic attack.
Oh, really?
And I had to get helped.
Can't imagine a winner says that.
Yeah, and on the bike ride, I had never tried to run after doing a bike ride. So I got off the bike and I could barely walk, let alone run. So it was the hardest 3 kilometers I've ever run.
Yeah.
And at the end, I was exhausted, and I thought, oh, wow, I need to do this better. So I went home and I kept practicing, and I kept doing it again.
Wow. And you're starting to participating in the triathlon regularly?
Back then, I would just do one event here and there because of work, and at the time I was traveling a lot, so sometimes I took 12 months, 1 year, and went away traveling.
I've searched on your Instagram, said that you have been backpacking for 1 year and you have been to China.
Yes. I spent 1 month in China when I was.
When is that? What year is that?
It was 2009.
Oh, 2009. Okay. How about the feeling about China at that kind of year? Yeah, 10 years ago.
Well,
yeah.
10 years ago, I moved around a lot more. I wasn't just in the city. I found it quite difficult because so few people spoke English.
Yes.
And I wasn't used to that. But everyone was very friendly, and we just caught trains and buses everywhere, and we slept in hostels, and it wasn't fancy travel. I was actually with my mother.
Okay.
So yeah, we had an amazing time, which was why when this opportunity to go back to China but to do triathlon came up, I was
it's the second time to be in China?
Yeah, this was the second time in China.
That's great. And at that age, you're already starting to train as a triathlete?
Back last time I was in China, I had done 170.3 distance event.
As an amateur age grouper?
Yes, as an amateur back then. I've only raced with a professional license for 2 years.
Okay. So when you decide to turn pro, the pro athlete?
Well, gradually my results would get a bit better and a bit better and a bit better. And then when I began to have times similar to some of the pro triathletes, when I was winning the overall amateur race, and when I was consistently getting results that were equivalent with some of the professionals, I thought, if I step up, being around stronger athletes will motivate me to be better.
Okay. And is that very hard for you to training for better racing result as an age grouper? Because, many age groupers not to set such a high aim to becoming a winner or turn pro. They just have a work and have some study and just treat the triathlon as a hobby. And is that
that's pretty much what I did for the first 7 years of doing triathlon. I never intended to become elite or turn professional. I just had my hobby, and I work. At the time, I was working 40 hours a week as a physiotherapist. Wow. So
busy.
It was just my hobby and my way to be fit and not be fat.
Okay.
And then as my results got better, my coach at the time, she was suggesting I take my pro license.
All right. So you got a coach when you were being an age grouper, yeah?
Yes, I got a coach in 2012 was the first year I had a coach.
Wow. And after how many years you turned pro?
I turned pro after maybe 7 years of triathlon, but after maybe 4 or 5 years with a coach.
Wow, so you turned pro at 2017?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, I think it's 2017 I turned pro.
Is that a big decision for you to be a professional athlete? Because, the competition will becoming a different level, and maybe you should give up more time of your ordinary job to training as a professional athlete and racing around.
Yeah, that's a good question. Firstly, for me, it was a really big decision to be professional because I didn't want to embarrass myself. I thought I would prefer to do well amongst age groupers compared to coming last as a professional. And I thought, if I come last, I won't enjoy the sport anymore. And it will take away my love of the sport. So I only turned professional when I was convinced I wouldn't be too far away from what the standard was. In terms of my work, I was quite stubborn about continuing to work full-time for a very long time, and balancing full-time as a physiotherapist plus the training of triathlon. Unfortunately, what happened is I ended up getting quite injured, and it took me a long time to relate it back to the fact that my body never got any rest, because training was 20, 25 hours a week and physiotherapy was 40 hours a week, and I didn't sleep enough, I didn't rest enough, and I kept breaking down. So it's only been in the beginning of this year I actually changed my work, and now I only work 3 days a week.
Yes.
And I've had probably the most successful year I've had this year.
Yeah, the change has some very good outcome, and the winning can tell it, maybe.
Yes. Well, yeah, I think what working less has allowed me to do is recover more, and then when I train, my training is better quality. And I haven't had the interruption for 1 year now of injury, because every year I would end up with a stress fracture, which takes you away from training and away from the sport for 3 months sometimes. So the interruption breaks your consistency, and then it's really hard to get better.
Yeah, so the rest is core issue for a professional athlete to recover, right?
Oh, absolutely. I used to think because I can sleep 5 hours a night and I feel okay, and I can go all day and I don't feel too tired, but the symptoms for me is my body breaks down and I end up with a stress fracture. So I've had to learn to take some time to rest more, to get more sleep at night, even if I don't feel like I need it. And that's been the difference.
Yes, you know that also an issue for some amateur triathletes in China. They're just getting less sleep, but finally find they are mentally and physically breaking down. And then they find out the sleeping is the priority of a day. If you cannot
absolutely.
Yeah, if you cannot get enough sleep. Sleeping.
It's the best recovery tool that you have. Eating well and getting enough sleep, like the amount of sleep your body needs, is far better than stretching and using foam rollers and getting massage and ice baths and all those other recovery tools. Sleeping and food is by far and away the best recovery tools we have.
Yeah. So that's a lesson learned, not only for professionals, also for the age groupers who have a busy working week. And
absolutely.
That's good tips. And how you feeling about this race in China? And have you ever imagined to get a win? And what's your racing plan and how it works?
So with China, I wanted to do a race this season that was on what I would call a more normal course, because I tend to choose races that are a little bit more difficult in terms of lots of mountain climbing or extreme weather conditions. And so after spending...
Yes, I've seen you choosing some extremely triathlons.
Yeah, I do like them.
I will discuss a little bit later.
Yeah, so after I trained in Europe for 3 months this year with my coach and with some other athletes amongst our group.
Yeah.
And at the end of that training block, I chose a race called Ombrumman, which is Ironman distance, but really quite difficult. And I felt fit and I had a good race at Ombrumman. And then after the race, I thought, well, with this level of fitness, I wonder how fast I could go on a more normal course. Mm-hmm. And I still felt like I had a couple of more races in me for the season. So when I saw that Challenge China was coming up, and I looked into it, I thought it was absolutely perfect for me, because it's from Australia. It's only 2 hours time difference, so that makes travel much easier. And the course was rolling hills rather than completely flat or climbing mountains. And I do prefer some undulations in the bike course.
Yes.
And I still had some fitness from Europe, so I thought it would be perfect timing.
Yes. And how you planning your race? Is that a difficult race route?
For me, no, it was not a very difficult race.
Okay.
Most races in Australia are not completely flat, or a few of them have some little bit of climbing. So China had 1,300 meters of elevation gain on the bike, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
The run was flat, which suited me because I'm not the strongest runner. I just felt like the course could potentially suit me.
Yes, and I saw you from your updates. You said your plan of this race is to keep ahead in the swim and bike as much as you can, and then see what can happen in the run.
Yeah, look, my run is probably in the best shape that it's been in for a long time because I haven't had an injury interruption. But I knew that two of the other girls who were racing are very capable of running under 3 hours for a marathon, and it's so fast. I haven't run near that. So my theory was I'm going to go hard on the swim and hard on the bike.
Yes.
So that either I have a big gap
for
the run.
In the live streaming in China, and some TV has broadcasting the live scene of the race. Your picture, your riding picture is composed most of the time.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
I think because I got out of the swim first, and I stayed ahead for the bike. Yes, I saw that there was a camera most.
Yes, and they have kind of get lost for the man lead, and they focusing on you for the female lead.
It was quite novel. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's a big promotion for all the sponsors for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody happy,
I think people were happy with that.
How you feel when you're leading? And do you, have you imagined that kind of situation?
I have been in a situation before where I have led for most of the day, but in Norseman in 2017, I think I led the race for about 10 hours, but a very good runner passed me in the late stages of the run. Yeah. So no one was telling me really how far back the girls behind me were. So I think that was actually a good thing. I just concentrated on myself for the whole bike ride, and I didn't have any anxiety that the girls were catching up, and I didn't get complacent in case I heard that I was getting further ahead. I just spent the whole ride concentrating on what I could do in that moment in terms of nutrition and staying down out of the wind, being consistent with my power. So I think it was actually a good thing that I wasn't receiving splits from behind, and I had no idea where anyone else was for the whole bike ride.
Yeah, so the schedule proceeded as planned.
Yeah, it was basically a 180-kilometer time trial.
Okay, and somebody said it's a very fast route for biking. Is that?
Yeah, it definitely. Okay. Absolutely, I agree, because the quality of the road is amazing. It's so smooth.
Yes.
And also with the hills, they're not too steep. Yes. So you don't lose too much speed going up the hills, and then the descents were longer and sweeping, so you could gain a lot of speed on the descents. Yes. And a lot of the bike course through the bamboo forest was protected from the wind, so there was no crosswinds or any winds to affect my rear discs. So, yeah, I think it was a very fast course. I think the men actually rode quite fast as well. I saw some very
the winner
times.
is 8 hours and 8 minutes. It was so fast.
Yeah, I think he rode or 4:20 something from memory, or 4:30.
Yes, but the men's race is a different story. The bike leader did not win the game, and another guy from Australia, Levi.
Yeah, Levi Maxwell the
Levi
win,
Maxwell.
which was his first pro win. Yes, it was great.
Yes, he passed the leader at the running leg and gets the final first one, and
Yeah.
that's a huge thing. Also, Australia is a very strong nation for triathlon.
Yeah, it's a very popular sport here, and it still continues to become more popular.
So, how popular is that? How popular is the triathlon in Australia?
Well, I don't really know what to compare it to,
Yeah.
but we do have actually this weekend coming is the Noosa Triathlon.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an Olympic distance race, but I think it is actually one of the busiest races in the world. I think including teams, they have, I'm guessing, but maybe around 4,000 or 5,000 competitors.
Oh, really? This is huge.
Yeah, there's waiting lists to get in, and if you want to register for the race, you have to do it very soon after registration opens, otherwise you miss out. It's so popular.
Yes, and the Australia has come very strong professional athletes like the Craig Alexander and you know the Marina Caffrey for the female.
Yes,
And
she's from Brisbane, yes.
yeah, really so where from? I'm. Where are
I
you from?
live
Yeah.
I live on the Sunshine Coast. I live at Noosa, or very close to Noosa,
Oh, okay.
which we call like a triathlon bubble. A lot of athletes live here because all year round the weather is good, the ocean is a good temperature.
Wow.
It's quite safe to ride your bike on the roads here. There is good trails in the national parks for running. The water, we don't have crocodiles here. We don't have stingers. Not really too many sharks, so it's safe for swimming from that perspective.
Wow.
So it really is. It's a sport that you can train the whole year round in Noosa.
Wow, that's looks fantastic. And what kind of race in Australia will you recommend the Chinese triathlon fans to go to race? Do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, for Olympic distance. So if someone is newer to the sport and starting with a shorter distance, definitely the Noosa Triathlon. It's an amazing event. I did
Wow.
it in the early days when I was starting triathlon. I would come to Noosa just to do the triathlon and have a holiday here for a week.
Wow.
And so I would definitely say Noosa Triathlon is the best event. And then otherwise, in terms of
Longer
Ironman,
distance? Yes.
longer distance, I would say Cairns.
Cairns.
Iron
Wow.
Cairns. And that's often the regional championship.
Yes, and Cairns is very famous for its ocean and
Yes.
and
And the rainforests. And
yes, and
Yeah,
it's very
it's
beautiful
beautiful.
place. Yeah, very beautiful place.
Yes.
Many of
So
the
Cairns hosts, sorry, I was going to say Cairns hosts a half distance and
Yes.
a full distance.
okay
So-
at the same date.
I think so. I think they're
Yeah.
held on the same day. Yes.
Yes, so that's the recommendation for Chinese triathletes to go to for a long distance. Okay.
Absolutely. And for a holiday, it's always good if you can go somewhere for a triathlon and then it's a beautiful holiday destination for when the triathlon's finished and you can relax and go to the beach and do some sightseeing.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful, and you have just mentioned you like to go some extreme triathlon, and you have participated in the Norseman, and also has participating as a supporter in Ultraman, Celtman, Apple Tri. A lot of
I have-
this kind of
Yeah.
extreme race.
I've competed in Norseman, Alpe d'Huez, and Omberman. And I was in the crew to help another athlete for Ultraman on 2 occasions.
Wow.
So
So how about that? And why you want to go to that kind of extreme triathlon? What's the attractive of this?
what
Yeah.
what's the attraction?
The attraction?
I
Yeah.
think because you always question,
Yeah.
would I be able to do this? Is this too hard for me?
Okay.
You know, Yeah, so sometimes I like a more normal course, as you would say. For example, a Challenge China, or in Australia, Ironman Western Australia.
Yes.
And sometimes I like to combine a race with going somewhere more spectacular.
Yes.
So the extreme races are never held in cities or urban areas. They're usually in quite amazing locations in the world. For example, Norseman was held in Norway, and Ombrumman is held in the French Alps. So it's the challenge of a very difficult day, but it's also going somewhere spectacular when I love travel and I love seeing new places.
Wow. And is that this kind of race will interfere in your professional preparation? It's an extremely distance.
No, because you can compete in some of these extreme races. You can compete as a professional.
Oh,
Not all of
really?
them have prize money, but for example, Ombrumman and Alpe d'Huez, which I competed in recently, both of them had professional places and prize money. So financially, it's a good decision, as well as ticking that box for my interest in these crazy races.
Wow, that sounds good, very good. And the China now don't have any professional triathlon athletes now, and is that very hard to turn pro in Australia?
So each federation has its own criteria for turning professional.
Okay.
So in some countries where probably it's a bit more competitive, the criteria is more difficult. You have to have either certain results.
Mm-hmm.
It's always results based, and so in Australia it was maybe moderately difficult, not hugely so.
Mm-hmm.
I do know of some other countries where the triathlete base is a bit smaller, and to gain a professional license, you pretty much just have to ask the federation and express interest, and you can. So every country is different.
Yes, and some top age groups in China has run 17.3 distance under 4 hours, and
Oh wow,
yeah, that's very good
that's professional level.
but it's very hard and for them to turn pro, and don't know how to turn pro, and what kind of thing they should be prepared. Should the professional get sponsored before they turn pro?
Look, you don't necessarily need to. I continue to work as a physiotherapist,
All right.
primarily because I enjoy my work and I want to keep my skills, but also the sport can be quite expensive.
Yes.
And I like to pay my own way. I like to do the races I choose and be able to afford it, as opposed to only being able to afford races where I have assistance. So I really don't get too much financial assistance,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I continue to work. And for me, it's a really good balance. Other people have felt like they're better to invest all their time completely in the sport, and they do step away from their work, and their prize money and their sponsorship is their only form of income.
Yes, that is a very big challenge for some people. Don't know how to, don't have any experience in this kind of situation. So
Yes.
yes, I think it's a long way for the Chinese triathlon top triathletes to becoming a professional triathletes. There are a lot of things to consider, to learn from, maybe from you, from other countries' experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the best thing is just for people to race, get results, and get seen out on the triathlon course. And people will approach you a lot of the time if they're interested in supporting your journey as an athlete.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do need to approach companies yourself and get them to notice you and see what you can offer them as a company for exposure and building their brand.
Yes.
And then in return, they financially can help you with product or finances. But I think you really need to start with getting some results so you can show you have something to offer the companies.
That sounds great. And do you have any near future aims or what do you expect from the professional uh, experience, professional lives? Yeah.
Oh, look, I certainly would like to win another race to prove to myself it wasn't
Okay.
a fluke.
I think that will
um,
not be a very long time wait for
oh,
another win.
yeah, and I'm interested in another extreme race in Israel for next year. So I'm
Wow, really?
currently,
Another extreme race?
yeah,
Wow.
it's called Israman Extreme, and it
Wow.
it looks difficult, so it appeals to me. So I'm in the process of seeing if I can get myself an entry and head to Israel for that.
Wow. And that to me what I heard from you is like you're really enjoying the experience of being a professional, not by some hard results of a as a professional. You like to enjoy all the journey to becoming a professional athlete.
Oh, absolutely. And
Okay.
that's why I don't put too much pressure on myself in terms of stepping away from my job and having triathlon be the sole focus of my life. It's for me it's about balance, and I really enjoy the journey. I love seeing the world. I enjoy
Yeah.
the travel. I love the people I meet, the places I get to ride my bike, and then the satisfaction with races and getting results I might not have expected. So it's really the package and the whole experience rather than just focusing on results for me.
Yeah, yes, it's also very good experience for me and for Chinese audience to witness to watching you racing. That is something the people can only watching from TV before. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I hope China has more exposure to triathlon because it's such an amazing sport and it's brought so much many opportunities to my life that I never expected 10 years ago when I almost
really,
drowned in my first one.
really, yeah, yeah. And as a female triathlon professionals, do you have some tips for the female age groupers? There are more and more female participants in this sports, but don't know and don't cannot get some specific tips from any of the Chinese media. Yeah.
Okay. I would recommend for a female athlete to look for people in your community who have the same interest so
Yeah.
that you have people to do some training with, because sometimes the training can be a little bit lonely,
Yes.
and training with other people always motivates you to work a little bit harder or makes it easier to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go for a bike ride before work. So if you have a community
Yes.
of people, you have the experience together and you can get advice from one another. So that would be my main advice, is to find a network of
Yes.
other women who
Okay.
have similar interests.
Yes, we are hoping that there will be social media who are containing all the female triathlon fans in China and to share some ideas, experiences from.
Oh, absolutely. Having a mentor in the sport, a female mentor, is invaluable. I have quite a few mentors for myself around Noosa where I live, and I had a female coach for a couple of years who was a professional athlete, and she was amazing. Just her experiences as a female athlete at the professional level was so good to have.
So I'm curious, is that most of the triathletes in Australia are a member of a club?
I would say probably at least 50% of people.
All right.
Yeah, I think because for some people they balance work and family and other commitments, it can be a little bit difficult to make it to specific training times with a club. So a
Yes.
lot of people are forced to train on their own or just with one or two other friends, whereas other people maybe who have more flexibility in their time can attend specific swim sessions and run sessions and riding sessions, and that works for them.
Yes, that's a very practical questions because many also Chinese amateurs, triathletes are working very busy, and they maybe don't have time to join club events or club activities. Yeah.
They'll probably know that most people within the club do have to balance work and family. So the first club I was involved in several years ago, I think we would meet sometimes at 4:00 in the morning or 5:00 in the morning, because we would all need to get our training finished by 7.
Yeah.
So have a shower, have breakfast, and go to work. So you just meet people who have a similar time schedule to you, and then it makes training easier.
Yeah. Is that very easy for the for the age groupers who are training alone to get some information or get some professional ideas on how to train in Australia?
Yeah, it is quite easy. There are a lot of resources on the internet, and a lot of professional athletes do make themselves available via, we use Facebook and Instagram, but there are many social media platforms where a lot of professional athletes are more than happy to help people who are newer to the sport and give advice. So I would recommend if someone has a method or a platform that they can reach out to someone for advice to do it.
Yes, that sounds very good. And maybe in China, the main source is from the club now. And and it's very seldom organized information online for the individuals to get a whole picture. So it's mainly by.
Well, hopefully it changes, because it's just such a help for an amateur athlete to have those resources.
Yes, and but we're patient. We can build it up step by step. It's also a long course, long journey for us. Not can be done by days. So let's looking forward to it. And your experience, maybe you on our podcast can share some of this kind of experience for all the audience and all the.
Well, I hope so. I certainly hope that it makes people realize that doing a triathlon is achievable for absolutely anybody.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, can you introduce some typical training week and how many training you done in a week's time, and how many times a week? Can you share some of it? Yeah.
All right. So in terms of swimming, I would attend a swimming squad where we would swim somewhere between 5 and 7 kilometers, and I would do this probably 3 times a week.
Yes.
And then I would swim on my own another 2 times in the week, where my coach just gives me perhaps an easier swim to do on my own, or perhaps I was working that day so I couldn't attend the group squad. Mm-hmm. So that would be maybe 20 to 25 kilometers a week of swimming. Mm-hmm. I would run on average 60 kilometers a week, and that's a mixture of some trails, so some bush trails, some treadmill, and then some footpath. Mm-hmm. And then bike rides, I would probably go out. I would do maybe 4 bike rides a week, and a couple of those might be inside on a stationary trainer.
Yes.
And then some longer rides would be outside, and I think I would average probably 350 kilometers a week.
Wow.
But that would be for an Ironman training block.
Yeah. That seems a lot.
It does seem a lot, doesn't it? When you say it like that.
Yeah. So it's a very busy schedule. I can imagine that kind of mileage, and it's a Ironman level training.
Yeah, that's training as a professional for Ironman. Certainly, when I began, I would have been lucky to have done 9 hours a week, 8 or 9 hours a week when I just started in the sport. And certainly for Olympic distance, you can get away with 8 to 12 hours a week.
For us, sounds better now. 9 hours is okay, workable. Yeah.
Yeah, you certainly can't start at 25 hours a week. It's a pretty quick way to get injured otherwise and get very tired.
Yeah. And do you have some tips for the first year triathletes who are just getting involved in this sports? What's the best? What's your recommendation?
My number one tip would be similar to before, is to find either a club or some friends to share the training with. My number two tip would be to either find a coach, even if it's an online coach, or get an online training program rather than just guessing yourself. Guessing yourself often leads to injury, or you end up wasting a lot of time and not improving.
Yes.
So having a coach and having friends to do it with.
That's great. And the last question is, what's the best part of triathlon? What do you think?
I would say seeing the world.
Wow.
Getting to travel to places you ordinarily wouldn't travel.
Yeah.
And with triathlon, you get to see the world on a bike.
Yes.
You know, no windows, no car noises.
Yeah.
You get to see everything in the flesh.
Yeah.
And the people you meet on the travel. So that would be my favorite thing about triathlon.
You can feel the temperature, you can smell the wind.
You get the whole experience.
And on this question now, what's the best memory? Can you give us one or two races, the most memory you have experienced? Yeah.
That would be probably the Norseman Extreme Triathlon, which I competed in 2 yeyears ago. That race, if you're not familiar with it, it's Ironman distance, and the swim, they take the competitors out onto a car ferry into the middle of the fjord, and it's very cold, and you jump into the water and you swim back to town, which is 3.8 kilometers. And then the bike ride is typically very cold and quite difficult with lots and lots of climbing. Yeah. And so that's 180 kilometers. And then the marathon is probably the hardest in my opinion, because the last 12 kilometers are uphill. You climb 1,800 meters in the last part of the marathon, and you finish the marathon in windy, cold conditions on the top of a mountain. And that was probably the most exhausting but the most satisfying sporting experience of my life. Even though I came second, I lost. I didn't know anything, but I was so happy to finish, and that would be probably the most satisfying event I've done.
Okay, thank you very much, and hopefully you can coming back to China racing again. And
I would love to come back. But honestly, thank you so much. I hope this gets into the earbuds of lots of people in China who are interested in triathlon and perhaps are now more inclined to take up the sport.
Yes, thank you very much for introducing.
You're welcome.
本节目在喜马拉雅、蜻蜓 FM、Apple Podcasts 同步更新，欢迎您搜索 Triathlon 或者铁三，收听、收藏、转发节目。你也可以关注公众号“你好铁三”，我们将推送每期节目的公众号文章。你好铁三 ，Hello Triathlon。